Hi and welcome back to Animal Liberation TV. So we're going to crack on with the Huddersfield Four, a storybook tale of a trial. I recommend watching the other parts. I think this is part 5, I'll check for the upload, but you need to watch the other parts from the beginning to understand this story properly. I'm going to read these next 2 pages out. Okay, developing on from the court case, the bug, and the increase of the charges to arson, thanks to the police bug. And then the second page has affairs of state, and there's a bit here that I've tried to read out and record before, but I couldn't read it. So if you can kind of get clear enough, it's a bit blurred, isn't it? Because I don't know if it's, anyway, I don't know if you'll be able to pause that and read it, but I certainly can't read it. Look how tiny it is compared to my fingernail. So I've tried reading it, it's no way I can read that bit, unfortunately. But it's Operation Fox. It's about the joint effort between Huddersfield Police and Greater Manchester detectives, the top detectives it calls them. Well, those are the ones who can spread marmalade to the edge of the toast. Top detectives in Manchester and Huddersfield all linked up in an operation to tackle all the attacks that were going on that year to shops, and the arson attacks as well, because there are quite a few arson attacks around Huddersfield. But you sort of see some of those in the intro, don't you? And the previous episodes talk about those a bit, or I do. So I'm going to read these 2 pages. During the course of the trial, despite the police's best efforts, the defendants did learn how the police had bugged their home. The police had gained access to a room above the lounge of their flat and had drilled down, placing a microphone so that it either protruded or just touched the ceiling. This method, used in the Sheffield trial of 1987, though the mic came through the floors, avoids breaking in to place the microphone, and is also the hardest to detect using electronic equipment. I don't trust any of those bug detecting equipments. You know, if you're going into a room to discuss something illegal, for example, and you've got a bug detector and it doesn't pick anything up, there's no way. I mean, I don't assume any room's safe to talk into. You know, I'm old school, proper old school, partly because my flat was bugged for 6 months, so, you know, and other places I've lived in. So there exists a general debate about bugging. Is it illegal? Well, for the record, there is no law relating to bugging. This is from 1992, so I have no idea what the laws are now. I'm just reading out what this zine says relevant to that point in 1992. Well, for the record, there is no law relating to bugging. There is a law which forces the police to obtain the Home Secretary's permission to tap telephones, but no permission has to be obtained in order for a house, office, etc. to be bugged. I mean, the police do whatever they want. You know, this is one thing you need to understand about the police, especially when it comes to political surveillance of political groups or militant groups. They do whatever they want. You know, I'm sure they've changed all the laws anyway in the last 30 years since this, exactly to cover all the loopholes that groups like us created and tested. So, you know, they do whatever they want, in my opinion. It is a police state we live in. Whether you understand that or recognise it or not, that is a fact. There do exist police guidelines. Guidelines, fucking hell. Imagine how much weight they carry. Zilch. Which recommend obtaining the permission of Chief Constable before undertaking bugging, which West Yorkshire Police claim to do in this case, but it is not compulsory or binding. Of course it's not. In the course of legal arguments surrounding this issue during the pre-trial review, the prosecution argued that they needn't say anything about the bugs. This was allowed under what is called public interest immunity, which means that it is in the public's interest for bugging techniques, etc., to remain secret. Well, that's what the law says anyway, and this is the loophole that allows the government, security services, police, etc., to get away with doing whatever they want, reaffirming my statements before that they do whatever they want. And the public interest immunity stuff was a really big thing in the Manchester conspiracy case, which I was involved in, which was linked to this, as I've said many times before. It was all, the operations were sort of partly the same operation. And public interest immunity was a big thing, and I will be talking about that quite extensively further down the line in Badger Stories when I get to all the court case of the Manchester conspiracy. And we went through loads of that. For the Huddersfield Four, this meant that the tape-recorded conversations would be used against them. Oh, gutting. Because they didn't use the tapes against us in official evidence in the Manchester conspiracy, but again, I'm going to talk about all of that. stuff. Very interesting stuff went on. Significantly, apart from them being arrested on the farm, this bugged evidence was the only real evidence against them in relation to the arson charge, because the police never found any devices. The state's servants in the police and courts have been intensifying their own campaign against acts of animal liberation over the last decade. Sentencing has become harsher, and the police spend an awful lot of time and money maintaining their intelligence gathering operation on activists. In 1984, Scotland Yard set up ARNI, the Animal Rights National Index, which collated all information about animal liberation activity throughout the UK. During 1992, a story appeared in The Guardian claiming that MI5 would now be involved in animal liberation surveillance. MI5, oh my god, oh. Fuck off. MI5, tosspots. Yeah, oh god. Without clear knowledge of exactly how the police work, etc., most dialogue on this issue is at best speculation. What is clear is that the police have access to vast resources in terms of personnel, time, sophisticated surveillance equipment and techniques, and a vast amount of intelligence about people involved picked up over the years. It is also clear that numerous operations have been set up at the same time, and that these are coordinated. In the Huddersfield Four case, part of Operation Fox, the coordination was between West Yorkshire and Greater Manchester Police, which is what that press article was about. And they're going to find the animal liberation activists, which they did. They did work out who we were, which wasn't too tricky. So, yeah, when it says about ARNI and gathering lots of intelligence about people, I'll go into this again properly in Badger's stories about the Manchester conspiracy part. In one of our pre-trial hearings, when Keith was still in custody and he hadn't escaped by that point, in one of our hearings, Keith got his barrister to ask how about the information they had on him at ARNI, and of course they denied access under this public interest immunity stuff that I mentioned before by this lot, and they said that, and bearing in mind that this was probably about 1992 that we had this pre-trial hearing and Keith's barrister asked this, and ARNI, as it says here, was set up in 1984, so that's 8 years. In 8 years, the CPS barrister said that they'd gathered so many millions of pages of information on the animal rights movement, they couldn't even specify how many millions of pages it was. So that's how much surveillance they put on the animal rights movement. They're very scared of the moral change that we want to instigate, because of one thing really, and that's money, money, money. What hasn't been apparent up till now is the level of coordination at the Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, level. Regardless of how much evidence the police gather, it is the CPS who bring the charges against people, and it is they who prosecute in the courts. During the course of the Leeds trial, the prosecution were forced to reveal to an extent the level of CPS coordination, which is going to go more into the evidence in the case against them in the next 2 pages, which I'll do next time. So for the people that are following this series, I hope you're getting something out of it. I hope it's making you think. And as always, everyone, take care.